Last time, God used Joseph to interpret the dreams of two men that had worked for Pharaoh, and everything that Joseph said came true. Well, sometime later, Pharaoh started to have some really weird dreams, and one of those men remembered Joseph. And again, God was able to use Joseph to interpret those dreams. And God used those dreams and Joseph to warn Pharaoh that some hard times were coming. Egypt was not going to have very much food. But Joseph was a smart man, and so Joseph was able to help the country get ready for some really hard times. Well, it wasn't just Egypt that got hit with the famine, the whole region did, and so Joseph's brothers didn't have any food. And we're going to see that they went down to Egypt to go get some help, and that's going to put them on a course to reunite with their brother that they had treated real well. Jacob found out that there was grain in Egypt, so he said to his sons, "Why do you just keep looking at one another?" He continued, "I've heard that there's grain in Egypt. Go down there, buy some for us, then we'll live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to Egypt to buy grain there, but Jacob didn't send Joseph's brother Benjamin with them. He was afraid Benjamin might be harmed. Israel's sons were among the people who went to buy grain. There wasn't enough food in the land of Canaan. Joseph was the governor of the land. He was the one who'd sold grain to all its people. When Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger. He spoke to them in a mean way. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "From the land of Canaan," they replied. "We've come to buy food." Joseph recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. Then Joseph remembered his dreams about them. So he said to them, "You're spies. You've come to see the places where our land isn't guarded very well." "No, sir," they answered. "We've come to buy food. All of us are the sons of one man. We're honest men. We aren't spies." "No," he said to them, "you've come to see the place where our land isn't guarded very well." But they replied, "We were 12 brothers. All of us were the son of one man. He lives in the land of Canaan. Our youngest brother is now with our father, and one brother is gone." Joseph said to them, "I still say you're spies, so I'm going to test you. You can be sure that you won't leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. You can be just as sure of this as you are sure that Pharaoh lives. I give you my word that you won't leave here unless your brother comes. Send one of you back to get your brother. The rest of you will be kept in prison. I'll test your words. Then we'll find out whether you are telling the truth. You can be sure that Pharaoh lives, and you can be just as sure that if you aren't telling the truth, we'll know that you are spies." So Joseph kept all of them under guard for 3 days. On the third day, Joseph spoke to them again. He said, "Do what I say, then you will live, because I have respect for God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison. The rest of you may go and take grain back to your hungry families. But you must bring your youngest brother to me. That will prove that your words are true. Then you won't die." So they did what he said. They said to one another, "God is surely punishing us because of our brother. We saw how upset he was when he begged us to let him live, but we wouldn't listen. That's why all this trouble has come to us." So the brothers went and did what he told them to do, and they were really stressed. You see, their dad was really old at this point, and Benjamin was his new favorite. Benjamin and Joseph were the 2 sons he had from his favorite wife, and the brothers were worried that if they took Benjamin away from dad, well, this just might be it for him. But they were able to talk their dad into it, and so they took Benjamin with them down to Egypt. Joseph sees them, he gives them some food, they have dinner together, and he sends them on their way. But he does something kind of mean. Joseph filled up some bags of food for them to take with him, but he also hid some of his silver in one of the bags. Then after the brothers left, he sent one of his workers to catch up with the brothers and pointed out that they had some stolen silver. And so they're bringing the brothers back, and the brothers are scared. You see, it sure looked like they had stolen some of Joseph's silver, but they hadn't stolen anything. Things do not look good. All they know is that they're in trouble. They're scared. They're confused. And many of them think that God is paying them back for what they had done to their brother. Well, they come back to Egypt, and they're brought before Joseph, who they still don't recognize. They just know that he's one of the most powerful men in one of the most powerful and rich countries. Joseph couldn't control himself anymore in front of all of his attendants. He cried out, "Have everyone leave me." So there wasn't anyone with Joseph when he told his brothers who he was. He wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him. Everyone in Pharaoh's house heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers weren't able to answer him. They were too afraid of him. Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." So they did. Then he said, "I'm your brother Joseph. I'm the one you sold into Egypt. Don't be upset and don't be angry with yourselves because you sold me here. God sent me ahead of you to save many lives. So then, it wasn't you who sent me here, it was God. He made me like a father to Pharaoh. He made me master of Pharaoh's entire house. God made me ruler of the whole land of Egypt. Now hurry back to my father. Say to him, your son, Joseph, says, God has made me master of the whole land of Egypt. Come down to me. Don't waste any time. You will live in the area of Goshen. You, your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and everything you have will be near me. There I will provide everything you need. There are still 5 years to come when there won't be enough food. If you don't come down here, you and your family and everyone who belongs to you will lose everything." Then Joseph threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept. Benjamin also hugged him and wept. Joseph kissed all of his brothers and wept over them. So they have the family reunion. Dad comes down and they all live together in a land with plenty of food. And things seem good. And through Joseph's actions, we might think that he has forgiven his brothers. But we're going to see down the road, the brothers still weren't totally sure about where they stood with Joseph. A few years later, their dad died. And we're going to see exactly what happened and how they felt about Joseph then. Now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers were worried. They said, "Remember all the bad things we did to Joseph? What if he decides to hold those things against us? What if he pays us back for them?" So they sent a message to Joseph. They said, "Your father gives us directions before he died. He said, here's what you must say to Joseph. Tell him, I'm asking you to forgive your brothers. Forgive the terrible things they did to you. Forgive them for treating you so badly. Now then, please forgive our sins. We serve the God of your father." When their message came to Joseph, he wept. Then his brothers came and threw themselves down in front of him. "We are your slaves," they said. But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. Do you think I'm God? You planned to harm me, but God planned it for good. He planned to do what is now being done. He wanted to save many lives. So then don't be afraid. I'll provide for you and your children." He calmed their fears and spoke to them in a kind way. Joseph realized that God had been in control the whole time. God had made a good thing come out of a bad situation, and a bad situation it was. Remember, Joseph had been sold by his brothers, accused of something that he hadn't done, thrown in prison, forgotten. It was terrible. But God had used all of that bad to lead to this moment, where Joseph was able to rescue his family and rescue a whole country by telling his brothers that. And by his actions before and after, we can see that Joseph did forgive his brothers. Joseph, who had been hurt by his brothers so badly, Joseph, who had gone through so much pain because of his brothers, was able to get past that and to forgive them. And as a moral to this story, yeah, we should learn to forgive a bit more like Joseph. Even the people that have hurt us really bad, we're called to forgive. And so we can use Joseph as an example on how to forgive. And the Bible is full of messages about us forgiving the people around us. But if we think that's the only point to get out of this story, we have missed the point. You see, God is using Joseph to give us a really big clue as to how he works. You see, Jesus, like Joseph, went through a lot of bad stuff. Jesus was betrayed by his friends, thrown in prison, even killed. And all of that happened so that he could save us, so that Jesus could save the world. And also, again, like Joseph, Jesus used that to forgive us. Jesus forgives us for every time we've gone our own way instead of doing what God has asked us. Jesus forgives us for every time we do the things that we know are wrong, and for every time we don't do the things that we know are right. This is one of the really, really clear times where God uses somebody to teach us a bit more about Jesus. And we're going to see time and time again, when this comes up, the people, they aren't perfect. It's not a one-to-one Joseph to Jesus. They never are, because only Jesus is perfect. But there are very clear things from their story that we'll pick up on that point us in the direction of Jesus, that get us ready for Jesus. and help us to understand him a bit more.